Thanks everyone for being here today, and thanks for to F&B for really setting this awesome event up.
And R&B, guys.
And R&B. Well, to the outside world, we don't know that. Ranesh and I have a bet about the use of the word silos. So in all your talks, if you can talk about silos, that'd be great. So I'm Dan, and I'm the head of DevOps at Absa. At Absa, we believe DevOps is the union of culture, process, and tools. So culture, of course, is the biggest part of it. I'm very glad that David spoke so much about culture. Makes my job a lot easier. So what I'm going to do today is talk about our journey and what we've discovered. Share with you some of the things that we at Absa believe make a successful culture for innovation. And when I'm talking about innovation, really what I'm talking about is challenging the status quo. It's a wonderful management consulting buzzword, but I think that's really what we're talking about. So I'll share with you some ideas that we figured out and talk a little bit about motivation, right? And how culture and motivation work together. And at the very end, I want you to get your excited voices out and scream and whoop and tell you about the practice of mastery, which is totally about Harry Potter. For real. So let's talk about culture. I don't even need to talk. That guy's talking. So we start with the question, really, what is culture? Is it beanbags and free food? Is it Pikachu and happy socks? Is it no slip-slops? Well, it's all of these things. Also, it's about how we treat each other. How I feel as an employee. That I'm excited to come to work every day is a sign that we have a great culture. Why culture is important is that, well, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Also, culture, the wrong kind of culture, can kill innovation. Dead. So, I forgot to mention the grumpy cat. So it's also about memes, grumpy cats, and happy dogs. Less grumpy cats, more happy puppies. So you can see from my quasi-mathematical formula up here that we believe the important aspects of an innovative culture are freedom, discovery, and excellence. A focus on these things will help us there. Now, a very important comment was made, I think, by David about how culture is not really something, well, you said something about leaders and how they can inhibit it. But what we really believe is culture is in the doing. Culture is things that we do as practitioners, right? So let's talk a bit about motivation. So this all comes from Daniel Pink's book, Drive, and I saw an ad in my Reddit feed the other day about autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And I thought I need to rework my slides, but I didn't. So I hope no one else is talking about this because that might be awkward. So in the beginning, the way we motivated people in organizations was the carrot and the stick. Now, if we think about the carrot and the stick, this is, I think, got to do something with a donkey. So a donkey is a really stubborn animal. And how you get the donkey to move is you hit it with a stick, or you put a carrot in front of its nose. I don't think having an analogy like that works for us anymore. So it's out. We don't have reward or punishment in the form of carrot and stick. And what Daniel Pink talks about is intrinsic motivators. So he tells a story, which I'll share with you, which really for me kind of encapsulates this idea of intrinsic motivation. So 20 years ago, cast yourself back in time. You're given two scenarios, and you're sort of asked to predict which one is going to work the best, which one's going to be most successful. The first one of the biggest software companies in the world is going to create an encyclopedia. They're going to get professional editors, content creators, videographers, and they're going to make a great encyclopedia on CD-ROM, and they're going to ship it with new computers or sell it to you. That's the first scenario. The second scenario is everybody's just going to contribute to this online encyclopedia in their spare time. And the question is, which one's going to be more successful? Of course, 20 years ago, you would have said Microsoft and Carter, right? But today, it's all but dead. And Wikipedia is one of the biggest websites in the world. And if you think about open source, Wikipedia is really an example of how people are motivated intrinsically. Not by a carrot, not by a stick, but by something else inside them to contribute to the wider world. So, culture and motivation, let's talk about how they really fit together here. Does anybody know this dude? Tesla. Look at his hair. This guy didn't care. It's like a honey badger. So the first part that we believe of a winning culture is freedom. Freedom to be you. Wearing slip-slops is okay. Wearing your hair in a kind of crazy thing here, that's okay. Being free in the workplace to bring your authentic self to bear on the problems that you have to solve is the way that you unlock innovation and challenge the status quo. So I want to touch quickly on personality traits a little. Dunning-Kruger effect. Anyone heard of it? Yep. Someone at the back. So it's the idea that your perception of your capabilities is higher than your capabilities actually are. Right? The inverse, if you will, of this, the imposter syndrome, which is one day someone's going to figure out, I don't know what I'm talking about. So we used to make a joke about this at Google. That's how you hire. You hire those people. You hire imposter syndrome people because they're always going to try. They're always going to give their best. But the point here is you're going to see this in the organization. You're going to see people exhibiting Dunning-Kruger things as well as imposter syndromes. We need to be aware of these things, and we need to understand and address what we're looking for. So we tie freedom up with autonomy. So in Agile, there's this talk of self-organizing teams, and that's autonomy at work. Autonomy is the ability or the breadth of capability to make decisions for yourself and for the team. And you see this all the time in Agile teams. They're free to be themselves. They're autonomous in decision-making. That's a recipe for innovation right there. And what you'll have is teams seeking value rather than permission, which is quite important. I think you'll agree. So goodbye to Mr. Tesla. Hello to a kid. And the second part of what we believe makes a winning culture is discovery. This idea that you go to work every day with childlike wonder. What am I going to do today? How am I going to change the world today? I don't know when last a lot of you felt that, but the traffic often kills that for me. I'll have to be honest. But what we want to do is allow serendipitous discovery. Sometimes I say words that don't make sense, but they sound good. So the idea here is we don't know what we don't know. So we should really put time and effort into our lives to discover what we don't know. Some companies do this with codefests and hackathons. And these are really amazing, amazing ways of doing things. Google has 20% time. Now imagine, so who's done a codefest or a hackathon? Probably a lot of you. It feels good, right? It feels good because you're discovering. Imagine that feeling of discovery every day. That you can be at work, be free, be autonomous to discover, to build new things. Back to Agile, sometimes I feel like we also make up words in Agile, like Sprint 0 or MVP 2. I don't know, but if you've been in a Sprint 0, that's all about discovery. What tool set is going to be the best for this? And if you watch the team, they're foaming at the mouth. Yeah, we're going to try Angular 2. They never ever had a chance to do that before. Discovery. Let's tie that into purpose. So purpose is being part of something bigger. Why do you show up at work every day? And back to Simon Sinek, who talks about people don't buy the what, they buy the why, right? So in a culture and motivating people to bring their best selves to work, What we really want to do is set that purpose, right? So the bio that Aki read, the idea that we help teams produce high-quality software at high velocity, that's our purpose. It's a kind of leading star, a North Star that we can move towards. It's not static, it can change. But the idea is that we show up to work free to be ourselves, wanting to contribute and see the value that we contribute. So the third part of the culture that we believe unlocks innovation is excellence. Now, I think David mentioned it, but has anyone read The Phoenix Project? So if I say the name Brent, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Hands up if you know a Brent. Hands up if you are a Brent. No, that's bad. But the idea is that in big companies, small ones too, I suppose, you'll always land up with these heroes. Being a hero in and of itself is a noble idea. And it's great. We shouldn't stop people being heroes. But we should help more people be heroes and not rely on one person. Because in the scenario of Brent, nothing moves through the system without Brent. So another kind of example of the Brent syndrome, as I'll call it, is time tellers versus clock builders. Jim Collins' book, Good to Great. You have a town, and exactly one person can tell the time using the sundial. That's great. Now they know the time. Until that person is no longer there, right? Now nobody can tell the time. So what would be better for that town is to invest in clock builders. Because now you have people, not only that can tell the time, that can build the thing to tell the time. And that's a much bigger pool of value for the whole town. So the idea with this is that we make it easy for people, all of the people, not just the Brents, to be more excellent, to go on that journey of mastery. So mastery, of course, is something that we all show up to do. It's that continuous improvement, if you will. The idea that you're never static, and you see it every day. Someone learning something new. They don't have to. Java's Java, right? But we are all on this path of mastery. So I'm going to take a quick pause here and just kind of summarize what I do before I move on, what I've said before I move on. So we spoke about culture and the things that we believe an innovative culture are made of being freedom, discovery, and excellence. And we tied it to motivation, made up of autonomy, purpose, and mastery, and how these things tie together. So now I'm going to share with you the framework that we've developed at Absa, which helps everybody on this path to mastery. So I must just warn you, that's a real website. I don't want you to /me. Does anyone know what /dot is? Okay, got some old people in the room, it's okay. The /dot effect is when there was a very popular website, they posted something there. If you had a website, you had to be damn sure it could scale because thousands and thousands and thousands of people would hit your site. So the practice of mastery is a framework. I'm going to get a bit technical, but you'll bear with me. I don't know if you noticed I'm a little technical. I don't know if it's obvious from my socks or my T-shirt, but so the practice of mastery are these things that we can do, right? We believe that culture is uncovered in the doing. So things that we can all do on this path to mastery. And they focus around the virtuous cycle of quality and velocity. Higher quality means you can get things out the door quicker. Higher velocity means you can spend more time on quality. So the first 4 things that I've got here talk about practices that we can do around quality. The first part of any mastery journey or any development journey really is version control. And of course, it's great, on the surface to think of version control as a backup of your code in case you get hit by a bus. I'm sure everybody's heard that. But the value in version control is not that. What it is sharing and communication, right? As soon as I put my code into a shared version control system, it means everybody else can collaborate on it. And that's the value of it. Code reviews. Who loves some code reviews? I love me some code reviews. Now, code reviews, again, has a superficial sort of value, which is that you make sure that bad things don't get into your version control and into your product as a result. But what it really is an opportunity for members of the team to learn from each other and to mentor each other about the common way of working. It's a way that the team gets better at what they do. It increases the mastery of the team as a whole. Third part here, local conventions. Now, that realizes in different ways. And this is not just about coders or developers, right? So code reviews, you can think of a design guide can be code reviewed. A document, an architecture document, is always reviewed. So local conventions talk about the human aspect. For example, if you're 5 minutes late to our stand-up, you buy coffee. That's a local convention that your team has adopted, right? The other part of it is style guides. Any developers love some style guides. Now, style guides, I'll tell you a story, which kind of illustrates the value of local convention. So I had just joined Google, and of course, Dunning-Kruger, right? My perception of my capability outweighed my real capability, as it turns out. So I made some code, as you do, and I went to my friend and said, hey man, can you do a code review for me? He says, cool, let's have a look. Maybe 3 minutes, he's like, hey Dan, did you know about the style guide? I said, nope, I sure didn't. So I went and I looked for the style guide. Now, the style guide for Java is actually open source. You can go and have a look. It's incredibly pedantic, like how many spaces instead of tabs. A little pedantic, but there we go. And so I tried my best to apply it, thinking if I do a 50% job, I'll get by. Nope. It took me like 2 weeks to make my code adhere to the style guide. Going back and forth between my buddy and me, saying, no, you need to have 2 blank lines before a method definition, you dummy. Can you not read the style guide? So eventually, after 2 weeks, I got the code to a point where he could start talking to me about the semantics. Hey, Dan, you know there's a shared library for that. Hey, Dan, you know you missed a unit test. So let's say a month went by, and I took it back to him. I finally got him, after coffees and chocolates and free food, to approve the thing. And as he approved it, I'm like so excited, shooting my fake guns in the air. And I went to him and said, so what do you reckon? That was an excellent, excellent experience. He says, did you know about the style guide, that you could automate it? And after I almost stabbed him in the eye with my fork, I realized that the value of that local convention, everybody goes through it. It's kind of like a rite of passage. But now I know how to review anybody else's code, and anybody else knows how to review mine. It's a standard way of talking to each other. It's kind of like a protocol. Well, it's exactly a protocol. But the fourth part of quality in the practice of mastery is called verification and validation of customer value. That's a really fancy way of saying testing or quality assurance, right? But the reason we talk about it like this is that we make it clear that it's a whole team activity. Testing and making sure that the quality of the product is what it should be is not just about testers. It's about developers. It's about business analysts. It's about the product owner making sure that the user stories make sense. So now the other part of practice of mastery always goes very quickly, which is a pun, because it's all about automation and velocity. You're supposed to laugh. Automation of all the things. So we talk about automating your build, being able to click a button and have your product build, an automated test, being able to click a button and have a suite of tests run, which grows over time against your automatically built product. If you put automated build and test together, you're starting on the continuous integration journey, right? And the concept of continuous integration is that you always have a shippable product. Yeah? And a shippable product is defined by the team now, because we all own that concept of verification and validation. So if you have a product that is shippable, ship it. Yeah? That was There was a pause for effect. Like, it's fairly obvious, right? And that's where we come to automated deployment. The last two parts are down in the details, and even for a techie, we don't talk about infrastructure. But let's talk for a second about infrastructure. Automation of infrastructure is a real thing. And it helps us as developers, as people who care about writing products and software, step up the value chain, if you will. We don't have to worry about infrastructure anymore because you know that the server that you get will be built really quickly and it'll be built in the same way every time. I don't know if any of you have ever got your server after waiting for 6 months and found out that it doesn't have any disks attached to it. I don't know if that just happens to me, but that could happen. Kirsten's going to kill me after this. It's the last time you're going to see me because Kirsten's going to kill me. Dead. And the last part here we talk about is automated operations. Now, what we talk about here, and interestingly, this is kind of the ops part of DevOps. If you build it, you run it. And if you as the product team are responsible for running it, you probably want to pay some attention to logging, monitoring, instrumentation, right? And that's what automated operations is all about. So I've told you what the practices of mastery are. And now I'm going to share with you a little website that we built called thepracticesofmastery.com. That's the website there. So like Simon Sinek said, people buy the why, not the what. So here's why you should care about practicesofmastery.com. So we in banks, I mean, in my team, we're pretty privileged because we've got an amazing boss. That's me, not Peter. In the banking industry, I think we're pretty privileged. I think we know a lot of stuff, and we're on a common journey. So let's share. Let's share and help our practices of mastery and help outside practices of mastery. It's me helping the other banks. And it's the banks in general increasing the mastery of the tech industry as a whole. So please visit practicesofmastery.com. We really welcome your contributions. At the moment, there's just me writing some words. But what we really want is that collaboration. This is a platform for us all to talk about our journey of mastery. So with that, thank you very much for your attention and laughing at my really great jokes. And that's that.